Editing Milky Way photos is tough. I have spent so many years perfecting my workflow that I want to share with you today that I think is going to help you to create better Milky Way photos in less time. I've really boiled it down to just 4 simple steps to create the perfect Milky Way photos. I'm going to be sharing that full workflow with you today. No secrets held back. Now, I am going to be using Photoshop, so if you aren't a Photoshop user, I do recommend checking out my Photoshop course first, which teaches you everything you need to know in Photoshop as an outdoor photographer. If you do know Photoshop, or even if you know a little bit of Photoshop, I think you'll be able to follow along well with this video because I'm going to explain things and I'm using some of Photoshop's most simple features in order to create this photo. So let's go ahead and jump right in there over into Photoshop. You can see this is the image we're working with. Now, step 1, I've already done because I don't want to spend a lot of time talking about in this video because it's time consuming, and that is either doing an image blend, like you can see that I have done here. This is a blue hour blend. Or you're going to do an image stack in Starry Landscape Stacker where you've shot like 10 of the same exposure. You stack them together to reduce the noise. I think blue hour blending is the way to go, but whichever one you're going to do, if you don't have a tracker, totally understand. I will link both of those videos for blue hour blending and for stacking your images down below. So make sure to check that out as step 1. So now once you get past that, you're at your kind of base image here, your base image edit. If you are just using one image, that's fine. You would just start here as well. So the first step is to separate the sky and the foreground. And I want to create 2 separate folders here. We want to name one sky, one foreground. Now, this is where I'm going to put all of my adjustments for each layer. I want to edit them separately because there's a lot of adjustments I apply where I want to apply it to just the sky or just the foreground. So what I want to do is select the foreground and then select the sky. I'm going to go up to my selection tools here, my quick selection tool, or just hit W. And then I'm just going to click and drag. You can see that makes a really nice selection of those 2. Super simple, super easy. Hit that layer mask button. Then I'm going to hold Command on Mac, Control on PC, and click on the mask that selects the mask. I'm going to click on this button here, which inverts the mask, so now it's selecting the foreground. Click on my foreground layer and apply that as a layer mask. Now, anything that I apply in one of these folders here, it will only affect, you can see this is the sky layer. If I put this in the foreground, it will only affect the foreground, which is exactly what we want to do. The first thing, the biggest thing that I like to do here is do a star reduction. This is kind of the last step of step 2. Once you separate the 2 is to do the star reduction. Now, there is a free way that you can do this. I've got tons of videos on it, which I'll link here, but I would highly recommend using Star Exterminator. This is not sponsored at all, but Star Exterminator, I've found, I really wanted the free way to work the best, but a client at one of my last workshops showed me this Star Exterminator, and it works so good. So I use this Star Exterminator plug-in here. The first thing I need to do is Command Option Shift E to merge all visible and just throw that into the sky layer. Then I go to my actions and I play my Star Exterminator. A lot of times this takes a second, but it does a really nice job of removing the stars. Now, while this is loading, we'll talk about why we would want to remove the stars. So essentially, the stars are distracting from the Milky Way. By removing the stars, we can keep the focus more on the Milky Way in the scene. I talk to a lot of photographers. Some people hate doing this, others love it. So try it on your own, see if you like it, and then you can kind of just go from there to decide whether you want to use it or not. I believe Star Exterminator does have a free trial, so it's worth checking that out before you purchase the software. I wouldn't purchase it without actually trying it. Make sure that you like it first. But we'll jump back in now that this is loaded out. You can see that it's done a really good job just before and after. So we'll zoom in here and you can see it just kind of takes the stars out of there. I can call this star reduction. And because it's in this sky layer, it's only being applied to the sky. So I like what that's doing because it allows my Milky Way to pop more. So that's kind of the end of step 2. Step 3 is all about applying those adjustments, contrast, dodge and burn, color, all that good stuff. This is really where we get into kind of the fun part of our edit here. So we are going to use our sky layer here. That's where we want to apply most of the adjustments. I will go in and create a brand new layer here. The first thing I want to do is just create curves. Curves is like one of the best things that you can do just right out of the gate. And what you want to do is just create an S curve. Now, a typical S curve, you click and drag just like that, which looks all right. But because all the pixels are down here below this point, they're not exactly being affected like I'd like them to. So I'm going to just bring this down a little bit further like that. And hit Command minus once to just zoom out. Now you can really make that pop. Now I also like to drag this blacks point potentially to the right, which is a little bit different than my daytime photos. I usually drag it up, but just to the right there maybe. And then, you know, you can really kind of just play with this until it provides you the results that you like. Now, at the same time, I like to go in and add a hue saturation layer. This is just going to bump my saturation in the photo up quite a bit. And I'm noticing that, you know, the Milky Way is not getting a lot of color. So there's a really quick and easy fix for that because, you know, I could go in and maybe adjust the reds or the yellows, but I'm going to have a hard time targeting this because it's not very saturated. So actually what I like to do here is create a brand new layer, but it's going to be a luminosity mask. Luminosity masks make a selection based on the lightness values of the pixels in your image. If you have a luminosity mask panel like the TK luminosity mask, you can do it there. I've already mentioned enough products, so I'm going to show you how to do this the free way. Not quite as good, but it is free to do it this way. So you're going to go to select, go to color range. Going to select highlights, and then you will basically just try and make a selection of whatever you are wanting, or make whatever you want to adjust white here essentially. So I want to select that Milky Way nice and good because that's what I want to add kind of this color into, and maybe like right in there looks pretty good. I'm going to hit OK. Let that one load out. Now I'm going to go in and create another curves layer. This is a pretty cool little trick. So now you can see, you know, I can darken this if I want. First of all, that's probably what I want to do is just darken it a touch. Maybe even add a little punch in there. Just a little S curve, kind of a little mini S curve. Just like that. Now I'm going to go in down to blue and I'm going to decrease the blues. By decreasing the blues, that will add some yellows into it and make my Milky Way a little more magenta. You can see as I go down, it starts to get out of control, but you can kind of see what it's doing with the Milky Way. So just give it that orange pop in there. And then I also want to go into green. I want to reduce the greens because it is coming in a little bit green, just a touch. I mean, this is just really, really subtle changes here and not necessary on every Milky Way image, but you can see if I zoom in here, that is starting to get a little bit more of that color that I want. Maybe I also want to go into red and just drop the red just a hair. And that's looking pretty good. We can also add another hue saturation on top if we then wanted to like grab red, use the color picker and sample a color here. Increase the saturation just like that. That looks pretty good. So now that Milky Way is in a lot better spot, you can see those are all the changes that we've already made. Still a lot more to come here. So we are going to keep working in this sky here. A lot of people always ask, dodging and burning for the night sky. Super popular concept. How do you do it? So we're going to create a brand new layer here, just a blank layer. We're going to change the blend mode to overlay. Overlay is going to be your friend for all things dodging and burning. It helps you to keep the contrast. Some people use soft light, but soft light tends to make things look a little bit faded. It does kind of add a little bit of glow. It's not the effect that I'm going for in this image. Now, first thing I want to do is I don't really like how this sky is kind of greenish toned. The Milky Way, the white balance feels just fine. So I don't want to adjust the white balance of the whole image. I just want to kind of touch up the color here. I want this to be a little bit less green and a little bit more blue. So on this layer here, I'm going to go over and select the color. I'm thinking this should be more like around this color. You don't want to oversaturate it because if I do that, this is going to come out way too crazy blue. You want to do a color that's like pretty close to the left edge here, maybe 20% across, about right there is probably good. And that might even be a little bit strong. Let's just actually go a little bit less. We'll hit B to grab our brush tool. I'm at 10% opacity, which is just fine. You can use your brackets to increase or decrease the size of your brush. Now you can click and drag in there. Now I would typically, this looks like a fine opacity to paint it in. Let's make it happen a little bit faster for the video here. We're going to go to 20% opacity by hitting 2 on the keyboard, and we'll just click and drag. Now if you're still finding it's a little bit too green, we can make our color a little bit more blue, just like that. And click and drag in there. And just like that. Now I want to match both sides, of course. So we're going to do this a little bit. And that's starting to look pretty good to me. This green color still isn't great. We can also adjust that green color if we don't want to keep brightening it. We could keep going here in this overlay blend mode, but I am just going to grab a hue saturation once again. Make use of the tools that are given to me here. Grab my aqua there and click on the eyedropper. Select right in here. I need a good sample, probably about right in there. Now you can just adjust this left or right. You can increase the saturation if you want as you adjust this. Probably about in there is looking pretty good. Now I am going to darken this at the end with a vignette, so I'm not too worried about that. So I think that is looking just fine for right now. Now we're going to go in and kind of make some tweaks to the Milky Way. This is always really important to do, in my opinion. I want to just kind of brighten the Milky Way, especially up here. You can notice the core down here is, I mean, it technically should be brighter, yes, but it kind of dies off up here. So we're going to create another brand new layer, overlay blend mode. This time I'm just going to grab a white brush. 20% might be fine. Now let's do 10% and do a couple passes. So click and drag, just make that Milky Way slightly brighter there. Now we can go in. One of my favorite things to do here is to grab that same kind of blue, light blue color and come into the edge of the Milky Way. And I just like to paint this in. I'm using my brackets to make the brush a little bit smaller. So I like to kind of add this blue to the edge. Now the one problem you're going to have is you're going to start to bleed over into some of these other areas. If that's the case, which it almost always is going to be, what you'll want to do is go to Select, Color Range, and then you will want to select Highlights again, and something like about in here. That's going to allow us to paint that blue, but not have to worry about painting over into some of these dark areas, and especially in the core of the Milky Way. Now you can either apply this as a layer mask to the layer, or you can just paint as it's on your screen. If you're going to paint as it's on the screen, I would recommend hiding, Command H, which hides the selection, but it is still selected. Now I can just go through and click. I'm going to go 20% so it happens a little bit faster, just like that. And maybe you can hear I'm clicking a ton. It's not making like crazy changes, but that is exactly what we're going for. We don't want to do anything too wild here. We just want to make this pop a little bit with a little bit of blue on the edge. Now let's toggle this before, after. You can see now we have that little bit of blue glow. Now I would create another layer if you're going to do anything else here, but what I would do is maybe go in and paint just the kind of edges of the Milky Way. Again, you're going to do Select Color Range, and you want to make a good selection of these spots here. I would almost do sampled colors potentially for this, just like that. You can see now it's sampling off of a color, and it has some really good color to go off of. So just like that. This time I'll apply it as a layer mask, but you could definitely hide it and do it just like we did before, but I'll do a layer mask this time. You can decide which one works for you. Then I'm going to want to grab that kind of orangish color that the Milky Way is, just like that. We'll go in. We're at 20% opacity, which is a little bit strong, but I'm okay with it. I might want to increase the saturation of this just a little bit. Just clicking a few times. Of course, you could make your brush smaller and kind of make this a little bit more refined, but it's really just up to you how you want to get this done. So a lot of different ways to do this. Obviously, I would maybe spend a little bit more time doing this if I wasn't doing it for the sake of editing for you guys here. A lot of times I spend a little bit more time touching this stuff up, but I mean, that already is looking a lot better. Now, last thing, I know you guys are probably tired of seeing me dodge and burn. Last thing is I like to darken the darks. That really helps to bring the Milky Way out. We'll grab another new layer. We'll go to Select Color Range. Change that to, let's do maybe color again. Let's see how it works. Now, let's go ahead and do shadows. Shadows is going to work a lot better. And again, I'm not worried about this foreground because remember, we're putting this under this sky layer, so it doesn't matter. That already looks pretty good. Yeah, you can see I just want to paint some of those dark areas. Press OK. Apply it as a layer mask. Grab our black brush this time. And now you can just paint through here. And really, the people who are creating those photos where their Milky Way has a ton of detail, they're going in here with like a really small brush, and they're touching some of this stuff up just like this. They're spending a lot of time doing this. So if you want your images to look great, spend a lot more time than what I'm doing right now. A lot of times I will spend a lot of time, but for the sake of this video, I don't want to waste too much of your time. But we'll go through here. That might be too dark, so I'm going to drop this opacity to like 3%. Click around over here, just like that. Now, of course, you can always go back in and make adjustments to anything that you've just applied. You can see those last 3 layers there. I might want to go in to our curve here and maybe just kind of make this pop a little bit more, and probably not that layer. So as I'm looking at this, I might think that, okay, this orange is maybe a little bit too strong, and it's not in overlay blend mode. That is a problem. So make sure that you're always in overlay blend mode. Same thing with this one. Sometimes I forget there, but once it's in overlay, it should look a lot better. That one's in overlay, so it looks pretty good. Don't forget that step if you were wondering earlier in the video why I missed that. I don't know why. I apologize. Last thing that I might want to do here is just maybe pop this Milky Way just a touch, like in the bright areas here especially. So we'll grab one more luminosity mask. Let's see what a midtones looks like. No, maybe a brights 2. Yeah, let's grab brights 2. And we're just going to drag this up to kind of pop those colors, make them a little bit brighter. And we're going to drag down from the top. So I want to preserve those brightest areas, just like that. Of course, you can go back in, you can adjust the hue saturation, make things a little bit more saturated. You can really go to town on this, but that's starting to look pretty good for our sky layer. Now, you're probably wondering, okay, we've done so much to the sky. What the heck are we going to do to the foreground? And the answer is very little. So typically in a more advanced, or not a more advanced, but a more complicated photo, I'll go into this foreground and I'll do, a little bit of dodging and burning here. But on this photo, since it's pretty simple, I just want to grab a curves. I want to create I want to grab this blacks point actually and drag it maybe just up a hair and then drag down from here. So just darken the photo, but preserve those super dark blacks there. Somewhere like right in there. It's looking pretty good to me. You can drag this around and see how it looks. You don't want to do anything too crazy here. Sometimes you'll want to play with the saturation. I don't really find that it's too terribly necessary here on this photo, but of course you could just grab a saturation, throw it under that foreground layer if you need, or of course some dodging and burning can look nice. If you wanted to go in and maybe dodge and burn this arch on the bottom of it, you definitely could. But on this photo, honestly, I'm liking the simplicity. I'm liking what's going on here, so we're going to leave it as is. So that covers that step number 3, all those adjustments. So step number 4 covers your final touches. So spot healing and vignette is typically the 2 things that I'm doing in my final touches. So I'll show you guys how I go about that here. In spot healing, I just create one fresh new layer here. Grab my, what is this cool tool called? I call it the Band-Aid tool, but it's called the spot healing brush. I always forget that. And then go in. I know I have a streak here. Now, a lot of people come in and they try and paint this and, their arm's shaking and it's not going straight. Instead of doing that, I'll show you a little trick. So you're going to click on the first point there and then hold shift and click on the last point. That will draw a straight line, which if you have planes in your photo, generally planes are going in a straight line. So you can do that to just wipe out all of that in one click. You can see how quickly and easily I was able to get rid of that. Now there's not really anything else that I need spot healed that I can see. Maybe, no, not even anything in the foreground. I think it looks pretty good. So that is it for spot healing. You may need to spend more or less time doing this if needed. Now the very, very last step, this is honestly my favorite part, is to apply the vignette. Now the vignette is really cool because it's a totally custom vignette. You can go in and do a vignette however you want to do it, but let me show you my way to do it, which is absolutely the best way, and you won't convince me otherwise, but you can certainly try. So I'll grab my elliptical marquee tool or press M to bring that up, draw a little circle here, drag this to the middle just like that. Now, I have an action to do this, which I cover in another video. You can check that out if you want to create the action. If you don't, I'll show you how to do it the long-winded way here. So create a new folder. Now, within this folder, you're going to create 2 new groups, just like that. You're going to change the blend mode of one of the groups to soft light. You're going to change the other one to overlay. Then you're going to go to select. You're going to go to modify. You're going to go to the feather. I know this is pretty step heavy. Just follow along, though. This feathers the selection. It makes the vignette not like just like a perfect circle. It makes it feathered, which is exactly what we want. Then you're going to go to the blend mode that is set to overlay. You can see for me that's layer 7. We're going to go to edit. We're going to go to fill, and we're going to fill that with white, just like that. Then I'm going to click on layer number 8. I'm going to click this button here to invert the mask. I'm going to go to edit, fill, and I'm going to fill this with black. Just like that. Now hit Command D or Control D to deselect. Go down to this layer here, the layer that added the white, the lighten, and drop the opacity. Usually like 20 to 30% is where you want to be for that. I'm just going to go 20% for now. We may adjust that later. Now click on your other layer, your soft light layer, and you're going to Command T to transform, Control T on PC. Then right click or Control click and hit warp. Now we're going to warp this vignette. Command minus or Control minus to zoom out. You want to be backed out of the image a little bit because you're going to be dragging this vignette pretty wide. So I'm going to go in and just drag. You can click on the corners. You can click on the image. You can do whatever you want here, but every image is definitely unique. And so you want to create a custom vignette because like I want the sky to look equal all the way across. You know, if I created a normal vignette, this left side is going to be differing in darkness than the right side. You can see how much darker it is in the corner here on the right. So I want to create this vignette to be totally custom. Now I like to darken this foreground pretty heavily, so I kind of create a bow down here on the bottom. You can see it's kind of bowed, just like that. Then in my Milky Way, this is where I will usually also do a little bit of a bow, but I will try and match the levels here to make the sky look equal. You know, we're starting to look pretty good in there. It's looking about equal darkness all the way across, just like that. Now you can drag the sides in if you want to do a little bit of darkening from the side as well. I think right there, I'm pretty happy with it. So we hit enter, we let that load out. Now, if you're finding that this is still too bright, because I do want to brighten the outside here, you can actually go in and make some adjustments here. You can do a selection of the center of the frame. That's probably where I would start. Just grab my quick selection here. You can use any of the masking tools here in Photoshop. And then I'm going to invert this, Command I. So, and then if you wanted to allow it to affect a little bit of the Milky Way, you can just drop the density just a hair. But now you can see we are looking pretty good. Now, kind of the last thing that I want to talk about in the finishing touches here is matching the color of the sky, because one thing that drives me crazy, you can see how the sky is a little more turquoise over here and a little more dark over here. I want it to match what it looks like over here. You're going to grab a hue saturation. If you wanted to throw the sky mask on, you could, but I'm not going to because I'm going to use a different mask here. Essentially, what I want to do is just make this color match this one. Decide which one you want to match and then go from there. So this should be a little bit more towards the right on the scale here, probably about in there. Now I'm going to invert this layer mask, Command I on Mac, Control I on PC. Then I'm just going to grab a brush. We're going to increase the size of the brush using the closing bracket. And then I'm going to press like 3 on my opacity. That is going to make it 30%. Now I can just paint here. Oops, and you want to make sure you have white over here. Now I can just paint in just like that. It's starting to look good. This one's maybe a little bit darker and a little bit less saturated though. So we'll drop the lightness and we'll drop the saturation. Maybe we'll, okay, yeah, just like that. And I think that's looking pretty good. This is definitely something where I would save it and go back and look at it because I'll probably change my mind, but I think it's looking a lot better now. That's looking pretty good. So last thing, if you wanted to open camera raw or do anything else, you totally could, but otherwise that's pretty much how I create my Milky Way photos, my simple workflow there. You can see we started at that and we ended at that. So just a few really adjustments that we've used over and over again to create this. Hopefully that helps. Hey, if it was helpful for you, do feel free and please leave me a comment, a like, and a subscribe to the channel. I appreciate it. I'm trying to grow my channel as quickly as possible so that I can keep delivering you guys weekly videos to help you improve on your photography. These Milky Way videos are usually pretty hit or miss, so I would really appreciate it if you left me a comment. Let me know how you liked it, and share this with somebody who you think could use this video. Otherwise, my name is Austin James Jackson. I want to thank you guys so much for being here, and we'll see you guys next time. Have a good one. See ya.